Welcome to the Earth Day 2025 virtual stage. And I'm John Oppermann, Executive Director of Earth Day Initiative. We're super happy to talk to Lauren Benton today from Back Market. We're going to talk all about electronics and what you could be doing to improve your environmental impact around that. Lauren is an expert, and we're super excited to bring this to our audience because I know waste is something that people really feel in their lives as we're throwing stuff away every day. So it's that tangible thing that you feel. So I
Yeah,
think this conversation will be really valuable for a lot of folks. Lauren, do you just want to give like a quick introduction of yourself and Back Market?
absolutely. John, thank you. We're so excited to be here. So, Back Market works to combat the environmental impact of our tech by extending its life. We do that through our marketplace. So, this is where you could discover professionally refurbished, better than new tech, like your next MacBook or some good noise canceling headphones that you need for the subway, that gaming console that you've been wanting. And to date, we've sold over 30 million devices globally, finding that second life for this tech.
That's incredible. So why is this a problem? So can you speak a little bit to the environmental impact of our technology?
Yeah, I don't think it's one enough of us are aware of. Every year we hear about the next greatest smartphone or tablet that's going to be released out. And it's told it's going to be better than the one that you have in your hand. And it creates this endless cycle of wanting new and upgrading. And what we don't consider is what's really happening to that device when we're no longer using it. So today, e-waste is the fastest growing form of trash on the planet, the fastest growing form of trash on the planet. We are disposing of our tech too quickly. If I put that into numbers, it's like throwing 800 laptops into the landfill every single second. And I just can't even fathom how that starts to track up. But
Yeah.
even more scary to me is that it's 70% of the toxins in our landfill.
Mhm.
And so this is leaching the mercury that's in the laptops, the lead, it's going into our soil, it's going into our water. Some of these devices are being burned for the precious metals to come out of it.
Mhm.
And it's not a conversation that we're having enough.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I do think, for good reason, climate change is sort of the 800-pound gorilla in the room, I guess
Yeah.
is what you would call it. So we do talk about so much of the climate impacts, but in some cases, I feel like we've lost sight a little bit of some of those other things where it's just the pollution that's going out there, as far as what you mentioned, like the mercury and the burning of devices and that kind of
Yeah.
thing. Can you speak a bit toward those things where it's like the contaminants that are built into these technologies that then people don't even think about? They're using them every day, they throw them away, but they don't really realize the environmental impact that goes beyond just climate change for that.
Yeah, you know what? And it's not even what goes into those devices and what happens to them afterwards.
Yeah.
The other piece of the conversation is what's happening in the original manufacturing of the device. So 90% of that device's carbon footprint actually happens, as we're taking those metals out of the earth, as we're creating the device, the shipping that happens, from all the parts that are coming around the globe. And so it's not only so toxic at the end of the life, it's how do we actually think about the fact that just by choosing to buy new, you're perpetuating the demand that we're taking from the earth to create these newer devices.
Yeah.
And so we always think about how do we just extend the lives of what we have?
Right. And why don't you think more people know about this as an issue?
It's a good one and one that we're working on. I say that with some sarcasm, but it's a lot of the New York campaign that we're running now around downgrading now. The United States, we are the second largest contributor to e-waste globally. Statistically, we're only recycling about 15% of our electronic waste today.
Hmm.
And why don't we know about it? Um, I think we have this behavior of defaulting to buying new
Hmm.
because if 20 years ago, 25% of us had smartphones. Today, 25 years later, 16% of us actually have two.
Hmm.
It's actually a new problem that's starting to surge for us, right? It's the first time our homes have 24 different electronic devices plugged in around the wall. Although it's such a dangerous problem, it's also very new for the generation that we're in now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting. I think we've talked to a lot of folks in other sectors that are trying to get people go for refurbished or
Hmm.
reused and in like the clothing or like the furniture industry, things like that. And I think historically there's been a bit of what experts have called an ick factor. That people are sort of like, oh, like someone's used this before. There's just like a general vibe around that. Do you experience any of that with technology? It's not really the kind of like fabrics and things that people may have like the ick factor with, but do you still
Yeah.
experience that just like general, like, oh, it's used, I don't want it as much, and how do you overcome that?
Of course. I always think about like you judge the book by the cover, right?
Yeah,
And somebody's thinking about, is this device going to have visual cracks on it where I'm almost going to like feel embarrassed carrying this device? Or if I'm getting the earbuds, were these in somebody else's ears before?
right.
And so the thing that I would step back is one, the ick factor, everything is going to be sanitized and clean. These are going to be devices that are fully tested and functioning better than new because of the sustainability element of it, but as good as, right? So these devices, when they're purchased by our professional refurbishers and brought back into the market, they are tested through softwares to make sure that every single piece of that device is going to work as well as new. They're using even robotics to test these devices to make sure that they're meeting the quality expectations that you would have. And so we work really hard on our site to also educate customers around the grading of the device, like the aesthetic grade.
Mm-hmm.
Are you comfortable with something that might have some wear and tear on the corners because you're going to put a smartphone into a case? Or do you want something in a pristine position with an almost brand new battery? We really want to give customers that range of product based off of what they are comfortable for because we know that's such a critical factor in their decision.
Yeah. What other challenges are you facing? So there's all this technology out there. There's
Yeah.
value in the devices. Many of them are going to landfills or being disposed of in other super environmentally unfriendly ways. So, other than the ick factor, what are those challenges that you're facing to get over the hump of recycling and refurbishing and like figuring out how to reuse in a more sustainable way? You as a company, but really just overall as a society.
Yeah. I think one of the first ones is not putting it into your drawer. Like, I would ask how many of you have an old smartphone saved under the bed that you were thinking, I want to like save for a rainy day.
Yeah.
Statistically, we've got four of them in our household.
Mm.
And one of the biggest challenges we have is not only does that mean that the next spring cleaning you do, you pull that device out, you didn't know where to responsibly recycle it, it ends up in the trash and contributes to the e-waste. But it's also the second that you stop using that device is an opportunity to give it to somebody else, whether that's a pass down to family or friends, or it's to bring it back into a circular marketplace so that its life can be maximized. And so I talk a lot about, the devices that you can purchase on back market, but you can also sell them in on our site for cash. And so we want to really encourage customers that as soon as you don't need that device anymore, we want you to hold on to it as long as possible. But when you don't, get it out the door to somebody else that can still find some value in it.
Okay. And in terms of if people want to engage with back market directly, can you spell out like what exactly happens? What is this process like for the person who wants to trade something in, get something from you all? Like what happens to the device? What's the system that it gets put into, and then it gets back out to an average person?
I love it. So hopefully I just triggered something like I'm going to go get that device out of my drawer.
Yeah.
And when you pull it out, two ways through our website or through our app. The app's actually a great experience, especially if you're on a phone, because it'll actually read essentially the metadata of what device you have. It'll already know you've got an iPhone 11, 64 gigabyte and pre-populate some of that information for you to make it really easy to trade it in. Otherwise, back market's going to ask you 5 quick questions about that device, the model that you have, does it still turn on, etc. And then what's going to happen is you as a customer are going to receive a quote estimate to say, on average, back market's paying out $156
Mm-hmm.
per device on our marketplace. And so you as a customer are going to receive that offer and a free shipping label. We'll even send a package to your home to make it really easy for you to drop that device into the mail.
Mm-hmm.
So we really try to reduce the friction for the customer. And then what's going to happen is that we work with a couple hundred US-based professional refurbishers. they're the ones that are buying those devices from you. So when that device is received into their warehouse, they are data clearing it for security to make sure that everything has been erased. And then they are running it through their diagnostics and repair processes. So I spoke earlier, it's robotics, it's software where that device is being checked. And they might say, you know what, this one needs a new battery. And then they're professionally repairing that battery, retesting it, and selling it on within our marketplace, hopefully.
That's great. And in a sort of broader sense, what could people be doing around this? So I'm thinking if people want to engage with this and really adopt that to move things in a positive direction in their own lives, are there larger ways that you at Back Market, but also the average person could be engaging in this, like educational resources they could look into? Is there any sort of larger campaign around this? Anything that people could be engaging with to kind of move things in the right direction to move toward that more circular and reuse economy?
Yeah. So there's engaging with back market, but there's really how do we engage with the entire circular tech, market space. And in order for the devices to be fully repaired and to come back there on the market with the highest quality, we really need to have access to the parts and to the repair manuals that are needed to complete those repairs.
Mm.
And so that's a movement called right to repair. So if you're not familiar, this is the idea that if you bought a smartphone, if you bought a computer, it's yours. If something breaks on it, you should be able to repair your refrigerator, your dishwasher, and et cetera. And I think it can be very surprising and very frustrated when individuals find out that that's not always the case. It's not uncommon for a brand to manufacture these products to have frictions in place when you're trying to get that fair repair. So that might happen through a software that requires that only specific people or specific parts can be used in repairing that. And so back market, we are very active in and encourage our own customer base to be in advocating for the right to repair. And that actually happens at a state level. So it's, individuals internally reaching out to their own representatives, pushing for these bills. And out of the 50 states we're in today, only 6 of them have passed that legislation. New York was one of the first ones on the consumer side, but I think there's still a lot of work to be done.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Yeah. I know someone who talks about this all the time, just the idea that, several decades ago in our parents' generation, probably, if you had something, you could repair it because there was an analog aspect to it. It's like you could open it up, figure out the parts, all of that stuff. But now so much is digital that you just have no way of tapping into that and fixing it. So it's just automatic that stuff gets thrown away. So I think that right to repair concept is one that would resonate with a lot of people if people do grasp that idea. We've actually moved away from just the freedom to repair the stuff instead of throwing it away. Any other key takeaways that you would like people to have about this topic and about what people could be doing?
Yeah. Look, the first one is I'm always going to challenge you that you need to reuse what you already have. We need to do more with what we already have. If we all just use our smartphone for one more year in the United States, it'd be taking 600,000 cars off the road, right? And so extend the life of that. Right to repair, repair.org. Please head there. It's the easiest map that you could find to click on your state and, to make sure that your representative knows that this is something that you are supporting. And that can be so impactful this year. The last one is just before you upgrade, look, when you walk down the streets, you are going to be bombarded with organizations with billions of dollars in marketing telling you that you need the next one, that this one is going to be greater. And you're using this device to listen to music, to call your mom, to text your friends. Most of us don't need this extra level of newness to be able to engage with our tech the way that we really are every single day. And that's that message that we have going around downgrade now. Really consider, what is the difference between the picture that you took on your 12 and on your 16? Most of us can't tell, right? And so vote with your wallet. Right? That's the strongest thing that we can do in the circular economy. When you do that, it drives businesses to be more innovative around building really quality products that can stay in the market and be more circular longer. And I think that's a tool that some of us forget to really use out of convenience.
Yeah. And finally, can you just run through examples, like 5 to 10 examples of what are the kinds of things, the kinds of devices that people can find on back market? Because I feel like you could listen to a conversation like this and be like, huh, I should look at my technology. But literally just hearing it, they'll be like, oh, I have that lying in a drawer. I have this in my closet on the third shelf. So, what are the things that people could be finding with a resource like you all?
I tell you what I got.
Yeah,
I've got an exercise bike at home, and I've got a great tablet
yeah,
from Back Market that I use for that. I have a vacuum cleaner that has been refurbished by us as well.
yeah,
During the pandemic, I was definitely one of the people that got a bread maker. On top of, I am working on a laptop that I got from Back Market as
yeah,
well. And so I think getting outside of just like what our smartphones,
yeah,
are, and when you look around your desk and be like, oh my gosh, yes, I could use another mouse in my work bag. And rather than going and buying another new one,
yeah.
that refurbished one that's working just as well as new is going to meet all expectations.
Yeah, awesome. I love it. Well, thank you so much. This was super informative. I think a lot of people, this will really resonate with them because, like I said, waste is such a tangible part of people's sort of environmental footprint that they feel every day. So I think this is going to help a lot of people. So thank you.
Thank you so much, John. It was lovely to join you today.
Yeah, thanks.